Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, let me remind you that we are stepping into a season of divine transformation. December is not just another month on the calendar, it is a divine appointment, a sacred moment for change. Stop worrying, because God is about to do something extraordinary in your life. Faith is the anchor that steadies the soul in the midst of life's storms. It is the quiet confidence that whispers you'll make it even when the winds of uncertainty howl around you. Fear, on the other hand, is the thief of joy, the voice that tries to convince you that the worst-case scenario is inevitable. But I'm here to tell you that faith is more powerful than fear. Faith doesn't just help you survive, it propels you into the purpose and destiny God has designed for you. Fear often shows up uninvited, doesn't it? It disguises itself as practicality, caution, or even wisdom. But at its core, fear is the lie that says God can't or won't come through for you. It's the voice that questions your worth, that exaggerates the size of the giants in your path, and minimizes the power of the God who walks with you. Fear wants to paralyze you, to keep you stuck in cycles of anxiety, doubt, and despair. But faith is the antidote to fear. Faith doesn't deny the reality of your circumstances, it simply refuses to give those circumstances the final word. Faith says, I see the challenge, but I know my God is bigger. Faith allows you to step out of the boat, even when the waters are choppy, trusting that the one who called you will sustain you. Faith isn't blind optimism, it's grounded assurance. It's knowing that the promises of God are yes and amen, that He is a refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Think about the times in your life when fear tried to take over. Maybe it was a diagnosis, a financial crisis, a broken relationship, or an uncertain future. Fear whispered, this is the end, but faith reminded you, God has the final say. Fear said, you're alone, but faith declared, God will never leave you nor forsake you. And even when you couldn't see the way forward, faith gave you the strength to take one more step. Faith is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward despite fear. It's choosing to trust God even when you don't understand what He's doing. It's holding onto His word when everything around you seems to contradict it. Faith says, I don't know how, but I know who. It shifts your focus from the problem to the problem solver, from the storm to the one who speaks peace to the storm. When fear tells you to shrink back, faith calls you to step forward. Faith reminds you of who you are and whose you are. You are a child of God, and He has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Faith equips you to stand firm, to persevere, and to overcome. So when fear tries to creep in, let faith rise up. Let it guide your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Because faith isn't just a belief, it's a weapon. And when wielded, it has the power to silence fear and move mountains. The present moment is a gift often overlooked in the hustle and bustle of life. We spend so much time dwelling on the past, agonizing over what went wrong, and replaying scenarios we cannot change, or we're consumed with worry about the future, creating scenarios in our minds that may never happen. In all this, we miss the beauty and power of the present, the only moment where life truly exists, the only space where change can begin, and the only place where God's grace is actively at work. The present is where God meets us. It's in the now that He speaks to our hearts, whispers His plans, and offers His peace. But too often we fail to hear Him because we're distracted by regrets or fears. Yet God is not bound by our past or intimidated by our future. He operates in the present, inviting us to trust Him fully in this moment, to experience His provision, and to lean into His presence. There's something sacred about the present moment. It's where we make choices that shape our lives. It's where we decide to forgive, to love, to persevere, and to hope. The present is where faith becomes action. It's not enough to believe that God is capable. We must trust Him here and now. The present is where prayers are spoken, where steps of obedience are taken, and where hearts are transformed. Think about the power of a single moment. A moment of kindness can brighten someone's entire day. A moment of courage can change the course of a life. A moment of surrender can open the floodgates of God's blessings. These moments, though fleeting, carry eternal significance. And yet they can only be seized if we are fully present. The enemy of your soul wants to rob you of the present. He uses distractions, doubts, and discouragement to pull your attention away from what God is doing right now. But God is always working in the present. He's arranging circumstances, opening doors, and speaking to your spirit. When you fix your eyes on him in the present, you begin to see his fingerprints all over your life. It's easy to think that real change lies somewhere in the future, that if we could just achieve this goal, solve that problem, or overcome those challenges, then we'll be ready to live fully. But that's a lie. Real change begins in the present. It begins with the decision to trust God today, to take one step forward today, to believe in his promises today. The present is a canvas where God is painting the masterpiece of your life. Each moment he's adding strokes of grace, colors of mercy, and details of purpose. And while the full picture may not yet be visible, the beauty of his work is found in every brushstroke. Don't wait for tomorrow to embrace what God is doing today. The present holds infinite potential because it's where God's power meets your faith. Live in it. Cherish it. Use it. Timing is everything, and no one understands this better than God. His timing is not bound by human constraints, deadlines, or expectations. He sees the beginning from the end, the past, present, and future, all at once. While we measure time in seconds, minutes, hours, and days, God measures time by purpose, alignment, and readiness. Divine timing is not just a concept, it is a reality that shapes the journey of every believer. It requires trust, patience, and surrender because God's plans are always bigger, better, and wiser than ours. We live in a world of instant gratification, where waiting feels like an inconvenience. But God's timing often requires us to pause, to be still, and to trust. When things don't happen as quickly as we'd like, it's easy to assume that God has forgotten us or that he's not listening. Yet, in the waiting, he is working. In the delay, he is preparing. Divine timing ensures that everything aligns perfectly, not just for you, but for everyone and everything connected to your purpose. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible. From the pit to the prison, and eventually to the palace, Joseph's life was a testament to divine timing. It wasn't just about his dreams being fulfilled, it was about God positioning him to save nations during a famine. The years of waiting, hardship, and uncertainty were not wasted, they were a vital part of God's plan. What looked like setbacks were actually setups for something greater. God's timing also protects us. Sometimes what we perceive as a delay is God shielding us from harm or preparing us for a blessing we're not yet ready to handle. Imagine receiving a promotion, a relationship, or an opportunity before you're mature enough to steward it well. It could become a burden instead of a blessing. God's delays are not his denials, they are his way of ensuring that his gifts come to us at the right time and in the right way. There's a rhythm to divine timing that requires trust in the process. It's the understanding that every season has a purpose. The seed doesn't grow into a tree overnight. It must be planted, watered, and nurtured. Similarly, God is cultivating something in you during the seasons of waiting. He's building your character, strengthening your faith, and deepening your reliance on him. When we rush ahead of God's timing, we often end up with results that fall short of his best for us. But when we wait on him, the outcome is always worth it. His timing brings peace, clarity, and fulfillment. It reminds us that he is in control and that his plans for us are good. God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with our schedules or expectations. Trusting in his timing means believing that he is never too early, never too late, but always right on time. It's in those moments of trust that we experience the fullness of his plan and the beauty of his purpose unfolding in our lives. Growth is one of the most powerful aspects of life, but it doesn't come without challenges. Often, the very things that hold us back are the things we refuse to let go of. Whether it's pain from the past, a toxic relationship, unfulfilled expectations, or the need to control outcomes, holding on too tightly can stunt your growth. To step into the fullness of what God has for you, you must release the weight that no longer serves you. Letting go isn't giving up, it's making space for something greater. Letting go begins with recognizing that not everything in your life is meant to stay forever. Some people, situations, and seasons come into your life for a purpose, and when that purpose is fulfilled, it's time to move on. But human nature clings. We hold on to what feels familiar, even if it hurts us, because the unknown seems more frightening than the discomfort we've grown used to. Yet growth requires trust in God's plan and trust that His ways are higher than ours. Think about a seed planted in the ground. For the seed to grow into a tree, it must break open. It cannot hold on to its shell, its current state, or its comfort. The breaking process is painful, but it's also essential. In the same way, letting go can feel like breaking. It can feel like losing control or stepping into uncertainty, but it's in the letting go that transformation begins. Many of us carry burdens that God never intended for us to bear. We hold on to guilt, shame, or regret, thinking we have to fix everything ourselves. But God's word tells us to cast our cares on Him because He cares for us. Letting go means surrendering those burdens to Him and trusting that He is big enough to handle them. It means acknowledging that His strength is made perfect in our weakness. Sometimes letting go means forgiving not just others but yourself. Holding on to bitterness or guilt only chains you to the past. Forgiveness doesn't excuse what happened, but it frees you from being controlled by it. It allows you to move forward, unburdened and unbound. It opens the door for God's healing and grace to flow into your life. There's also a need to let go of fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of stepping into the unknown. Fear keeps you in a small, safe place, but growth happens outside of comfort zones. When you let go of fear, you make room for faith. You allow God to lead you into places you never imagined you could go. Letting go is an act of faith. It's saying, God, I trust you more than I trust myself. I trust your plan more than my understanding. I release what I've been holding on to so that I can receive what you have for me. In that surrender, you'll find freedom, peace, and growth beyond measure. Hope is the lifeline that keeps us anchored in the storms of life. It is more than a fleeting emotion or a wishful thought. It is a deep assurance rooted in the promises of God. Hope reminds us that no matter how dark the night, the dawn will come. It speaks to the heart when everything else seems to crumble, whispering that God is not finished yet. Hope is unshakable because it is not based on circumstances, but on the unwavering character of God. Life has a way of testing hope. Challenges, disappointments, and delays can make it seem as though hope is slipping through our fingers. Yet, true hope is not dependent on what we see, it is built on what we believe. It looks beyond the present moment and clings to the truth that God is faithful. When everything else is uncertain, hope holds firm because it is anchored in the one who never changes. Unshakable hope doesn't ignore reality, it transcends it. It acknowledges the pain, the struggle, and the uncertainty, but it refuses to be defined by them. Hope declares that even in the valley, God is with you. Even in the wilderness, He is guiding you. Even in the waiting, He is working all things together for your good. It is this kind of hope that keeps you moving forward when everything in you wants to give up. And think about Abraham, who hoped against hope that God would fulfill His promise of a son. He didn't see the promise for years, but he believed anyway. His hope wasn't in his own ability or timing, it was in God's power and faithfulness. That's what made his hope unshakable. It was anchored in the eternal, not the temporary. Hope is a shield against despair. When doubt tries to creep in, hope reminds you of God's track record. When fear whispers lies, hope speaks truth. It says, God has brought me this far, and He will carry me the rest of the way. Hope is the refusal to let go of the promise, even when the promise seems impossible. Sometimes hope is a quiet strength, a stillness in the storm. Other times it is a bold declaration, a refusal to accept defeat. Either way, it is a lifeline that connects you to God's purposes. Hope gives you the courage to dream again, to believe again, and to rise again after every fall. Unshakable hope is contagious. When you hold on to hope, you inspire others to do the same. Your testimony of God's faithfulness becomes a beacon of light for those still searching in the dark. Hope multiplies when shared because it points people back to the source of God, who is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all we can ask or think. Hold on to hope with all your heart. It is the bridge between where you are and where God is taking you. It is the declaration that no matter what happens, your story is still in His hands. Renewal is the heartbeat of God's promises to His people. It is the assurance that no matter how broken, weary, or lost we feel, there is a divine invitation to begin again. God specializes in taking what seems dead and breathing life into it. His promise of renewal is not a vague hope, but a certainty rooted in His character as Creator, Restorer, and Redeemer. Life has a way of wearing us down. The constant demands, unexpected losses, and unrelenting challenges can make us feel like we're running on empty. But God doesn't leave us in that place. He steps into the middle of our mess and offers renewal. His word declares, "Behold, I am making all things new." It is not a question of if, but when. Renewal is part of His nature. He delights in restoring what has been worn out, rebuilding what has been torn down, and reviving what has been lost. God's renewal is holistic. It's not just about changing circumstances, it's about transforming hearts and minds. Renewal begins on the inside as God breathes new life into our spirits. He replaces despair with hope, weakness with strength, and fear with courage. Through His Spirit, He renews our vision, reminding us of His plans and purposes for our lives. Where we see failure, He sees potential. Where we see ashes, He sees beauty. One of the most profound aspects of renewal is its ability to erase the power of the past. God's promise of renewal is an invitation to let go of what was and embrace what can be. He doesn't just patch up the old, He makes things new. Just as the seasons shift and winter gives way to spring, God brings fresh beginnings into our lives. He wipes away the mistakes, regrets, and pain of yesterday and sets us on a path of restoration. Renewal requires surrender. It means releasing control and trusting God to do what only He can do. We cannot manufacture renewal on our own. It is a divine work. But when we open our hearts and invite Him in, He begins to transform us from the inside out. And renewal is not instant, it is a process. But as we walk with God, we begin to see the evidence of His work: peace where there was chaos, joy where there was sorrow, and strength where there was weakness. God's promise of renewal extends to every area of our lives. He renews relationships, restoring what seemed irreparable. He renews opportunities, opening doors we thought were closed forever. He renews dreams, rekindling the passion and purpose He placed in our hearts. Nothing is beyond the reach of His renewal. This promise of renewal reminds us that no season is final. No failure is fatal. With God, every ending carries the potential for a new beginning. His mercies are new every morning, offering us the chance to step into the fullness of His grace and experience the abundant life He has promised. In the journey of life, we face moments of doubt, seasons of waiting, and battles that test our strength. Yet through it all, God's promises stand firm. His timing is perfect, His hope is unshakable, and His power to renew and restore is unmatched. Whether it's letting go of the past, trusting in His divine timing, or holding fast to faith and hope, the key is surrendering to His plan and believing in His word. God is not only the author of our lives, but also the sustainer and redeemer. Every challenge, delay, and detour is part of a greater story, a story written by the one who knows the end from the beginning. So no matter where you are right now, trust that God is at work. Let go of fear, embrace faith, and lean into His promises. As you move forward, remember that with God, nothing is wasted and nothing is impossible. He will take every broken piece, every weary moment, and every delayed dream and use it for his glory and your good. Step into his presence with confidence. Hold on to his promises with hope, and walk in the assurance that he is making all things new. Your best days are still ahead, for the God who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it.